Welcome to Ashtabula, Ohio. Located at the mouth of the Ashtabula River on the southern shores of Lake Erie, this beautiful lakeside city is filled with rich history and local pride. Join us as residents show and tell everything that makes their community a great hometown.
My name is Jim Timonier. I'm the city manager for the city of Ashtabula, and we're here today to talk about our Ashtabula Lift Bridge. So our port here on the Ashtabula River has been a very active port in the commercial industry with iron ore, with coal coming in and out. The Ashtabula River has always divided two parts of our city. So back in the day, in the 1800s, they needed a way to link both sides of the river. So originally there was a pontoon bridge that was pushed in and out of the way. That eventually was replaced by a swing bridge. And then accident after accident was happening there, cars going into the river when it was opened. So in about 1924, 1925, they decided to build what we have today is known as the Bascule Lift Bridge. And it's been around ever since then. It's a historic, it's on the Historic Places National Registry, and extensive maintenance is done to it year after year. I think this is one of two that's left in the state of Ohio. It's the only one that actually traverses a state route. So when you look at the design of the lift bridge, especially with the huge counterweight, I think that's the most iconic part about that bridge. Not to mention that it goes, the roadway goes up and down. But because of that counterweight and because of the design, that bridge is actually only controlled by two 75 horsepower motors that act as lifting it, lowering it, and then braking it in between there. If something were to go wrong with that, again, because of the design of that bridge, there's a way that they can actually crank the bridge up manually. I think they use a little garden tractor that kind of goes around in a circle connected to a pole, and the bridge can actually be raised and lowered in that fashion. The bridge is extremely important, not only back when this was first constructed and through the history of the harbor, but even coming more recent. Before I became city manager, I was the president of our local chamber of commerce, and when I first came on board, the bridge was undergoing one of its extensive rehabs. About every 15 to 20 years, they take the bridge out of service and do an extensive rehab on it. And during that time, as they dug deeper and deeper into the bridge, they found more and more problems with it. So it stayed out for a more extended period of time. And especially in the retail world and our commerce that's down on Bridge Street, that was really painful for them. So it shows the importance of that bridge, connecting our areas, and of course coming off of State Route 11. It's a great way to get down to the harbor, and tourism has been huge for us down there. So a lot of things have grown up around that bridge. We've had several projects where just recently we added new LED lighting system to the bridge, which can actually be synced to music. So it's really cool during special times of months or different events going on. We can change the bridge color. During Christmas, we'll light it up green and red, different things like that. So it's been a good addition, not only for local residents, but for tourists coming to the area. We here that live in Ashtabula City and the county, when summertime comes around and the bridge starts to become active with boat traffic, raising and lowering, it goes up and down on the hour and on the half hour. So you kind of time your day if you have to go through the harbor area around that. You don't want to get stuck in that line. When you hear that siren as a local, you're either trying to gun it to go across there, or you're going to be stuck there for 10, 15 minutes. But what's interesting about that, that's our perspective because we deal with it daily. However, when we have festivals or we have visitors that are coming to the area, you'll often find them lining the banks of the river with their cell phones or cameras out and taking video of this bridge going up and down. So it's nice to be reminded of that perspective of the actual treasure that we have here in our community, where we take it for granted every day and people are just amazed by it. And it's nice to see that when we have visitors in our area and talking about our bridge.
Hi, my name's Eli Khalil, and today I'm going to talk to you about Bridge Street and where we are and where we'll be going. So Bridge Street for a long time had a lot of vacant buildings, and it wasn't an area where a lot of people stopped and wanted to stop and go through. From now, we've grown monumentally. There's a lot of restaurants that are really thriving, a lot of cute antique stores and small local shopping centers. We also have now residential areas where people are living in townhouses, and we've got a beautiful waterfront that a lot of families come to explore and share. On the western side of Bridge Street, you're going to see townhouses. You are going to see restaurants. You're going to see a lot of sit-down eatery areas for places for people to interact with. You could potentially be seeing a bike shop coming up. And on the opposite side, you're going to be seeing a new Petman plant. It's a pig iron plant that will be coming in to bring in a lot of industry and a lot of jobs back to the area. There has been some recent demolition for some construction projects that might be going on. And we'll also be seeing, for the first time in 100 years, a brand new hotel coming in, the Riverbend Hotel. So we'll also be seeing a North Shore Trail project that will be coming into Bridge Street. We're also going to be seeing a new pavilion that's added for people to enjoy, whether that be grabbing their food and going to enjoy on it. Bridge Street is a tourist economy, and it's built on local people. So these local restaurants and individuals who've built it up really thrive on people coming in and coming from all over and all parts of the country to come and explore. I think it being the most unique part of Bridge Street is being built by locals, and from an area that didn't have a whole lot, and having local business owners and investors say, hey, we want to make this a pinnacle of the county. I appreciate that, and I think it draws a lot of tourist attraction because there aren't the big corporations that have put the money in. It's all local people, and it has its own unique style and sense of things. This area, again, going back to the local sense of things, the families that have invested here, it's important because it helps keep those contributing members around. It helps make attractions for other young people, other innovators, and promising young folks that want to come here and stay, whether it be having fun on the water, enjoying at a really nice restaurant, going and exploring other areas similar to Bridge Street. It's a main attraction that brings a lot of people in and convinces a lot of people to stay. Ashtabula is incredibly unique. The people, the diversity that it has, and I think the sense of pride that we have here. You can go anywhere in the state of Ohio. You can go outside the state of Ohio, and when you mention Ashtabula, there's always going to be a question or someone's going to resonate it with some way. And I think I love the pride that people embody about it most.
I'm Tara Hawkins, and I'm here to talk about the restaurants on Bridge Street in Ashtabula, Ohio. There are a variety of restaurants on Bridge Street, different styles, different environments as well that you can go to. There's probably over 10 different places you can go to hang out down there. Briquette Smokehouse is probably my favorite, but I do have bias because I've worked there for about 7 years. They have been around kind of at the beginning of Bridge Street's transformation, along with the Harbor Perk, which is a coffee house down there where they roast all their own beans. Briquette's is unique. They smoke all of their own meats. They've moved on the street. This is their third location, and then each location they were in, somewhere else took its place. So our first location is where Rennick Meat Market is, which has really excellent brunch. So if you ever want some short rib hash, they have the best. They have really good cocktails too. But that's where Briquette started. And then shortly after, they moved across the street. And now Bridge Street Pizza is in that location, which they have deep dish pizza, New York thin crust pizza. They will be moving soon off of Bridge Street, but their pizza is still amazing. And then down the road is Fitzgerald's. And then if you keep going from there, Fire Chicken Sandwiches, they are very new. They offer really good deep fried chicken. And across the street from them is Bascule Bar and Grill, which they have fantastic steaks, really awesome homemade cocktails. All of their tonics are made in-house, and it's a little more upscale, so they have white tablecloths, but it's more of a fine dining experience. Cloven Hoof Brewery is also down the street, and they offer great, fantastic craft beers that they make themselves. The owners are amazing and a big component for Bridge Street. They also provide food from Moore's, which is a market on the street. They have a farm where they raise all of their own animals and produce to provide the food for their market and for Cloven Hoof. I think the restaurants are successful there because they're such a big part of our community. Everybody that works there at all of the places, we all frequent and support each other. They support Ashtabula in a really big way. They all contribute to Ashtabula's success. They want to see our town grow and be prosperous, and we had, a bit of the recession hit us too, as it did with every small town, and it's finally coming back up, and tourism is such a big key of our finances here that the restaurants really put into our community and help everybody.
Hi, I'm Deborah Grimm. I'm the owner of Fitzgerald's Wine Bar and Restaurant in Ashtabula Harbor. Fitzgerald's Wine Bar and Restaurant came to being out of a passion of mine. We wanted to, my husband and I wanted to take on this project and restore a building that had been destroyed by a fire. The building sat vacant for over 40 years, and the original owner was Hiram Cook. It was a boot and shoe company back in 1896, and we did not want to see a building crumbling to the ground in Ashtabula Harbor. So we took on the project. It was a huge project to do this rehabilitation, all to the federal and state standards for preservation. So every architectural element that was there that we could save, we did. And anything that had to be replaced was replaced in kind, so we weren't changing the design of the building per se. Although a lot was destroyed by fire, there's a lot on the facade, the outside elements, and especially the windows that are all brought right back to what they originally were. So the idea for the wine bar and restaurant came to being because we're a wine country, and all of Ashtabula Harbor is full with many great local wines, and as we know, growing every day with the amount of wineries in this area. So we thought, why not bring something where people could enjoy all the local wines, but wines from around the world as well, with great fare to accompany that. Well, the restoration took a couple years actually, and everything from going through the state and federal approvals to local, and then building everything. And the project was built with great love and attention to detail, and so all the architectural elements that are there are very refined, and we hope will stand the test of time, and that the building, will remain for many years to come. So coming to Ashtabula was actually by choice. I wasn't born and raised, although not too far from here, about an hour away, but I chose to move to Ashtabula. I love the community, love the beaches, and obviously wine country, and wanted to bring a business to Bridge Street. Ashtabula Harbor is very historically significant, and wanted to contribute and bring something to the harbor that would speak to the community and help drive the economy. And so it occurred to me, with all of the lovely wineries around and people producing wine in this region, why not have a hub for all of that? So Fitzgerald's Wine Bar and Restaurant came out of that. And again, giving people an opportunity to come in and taste local wines, but also wine from around the world, so it encompasses all of that. So as far as I know, we have the largest selection in the county of wines in general. Hundreds and hundreds of bottles are in our wine library, and it's ever changing. We're always seeking new, looking for special vintages, a lot of boutique wines that you wouldn't find in big box stores and other places. So we'd like to see, I'd like to see Ashtabula Harbor prosper. It's definitely on its way. It is one of those towns that are really making a significant impact in tourism, and the local community is certainly out enjoying it every day. And I would like to see Fitzgerald's, remain and go on and prosper, and the building, if nothing else, the building remain on Bridge Street and become a great home for another new business somewhere down the line, but that the history is still there, the building is still there, and still contributing.
My name is Molly Taylor, and I am the co-chair and art director for Art in the Alley, which is an art festival in downtown Ashtabula on Main Avenue. So the Art in the Alley Festival it's now 2020, so this would have been the 5th year. It started in 2016. So the 2020 season is a little bit different than the other seasons for obvious reasons. But in 2018 is when I actually joined the committee. And it was about a week before the actual festival, which is a crazy time to join a committee because you're just plopped down in the middle of everything, and they say, hey, make this happen. That first year that I was part of the committee, it definitely was a whirlwind and a very fast track getting on board with everything. So that year was a great festival, absolutely. The year after that, obviously, was the 2019, and what impressed me the most is the growth from 18 to 19. And even going back so far as from where it started in 16 up until 19. So every single year, it was just growing and growing. And a lot of it was just naturally growing just because people were interested and people wanted to get involved. And the art community, the artist community were talking amongst themselves and, hey, this is a really cool event that's different from other festivals that are out there. So there was a lot of, definitely some hard work to get the growth, but a lot of it was just an organic growth of, like I said, the artist community. And then the jump again, going back from what I saw and experienced from 2018 to 2019 was very cool because we added on a huge outdoor covered tent. So it was a really cool, unique stringing the lights underneath the tent for an evening art show, which was very quaint and cool. And we're starting now the big vision is we're starting now to really wrap around all the alleys in downtown. So we're talking about Art in the Alley, right? That's the name of what we're achieving here. And downtown Ashtabula is an old downtown area, just like any other small downtown area. Lots of very cool brick old alleyways, perfect for artists. And the first year started in the one alley. The second year carried through around the corner. So we really want to ultimately expand this so it wraps all the way around the block. For example, again, going back 2018 to 2019, we added on food trucks. We added on more live music. We added on a wine tent. We added on a kids art area, chalk art on the ground, chalk art on the walls. So just really trying to grow it and have it be a true alley experience to carry on the name of what we're doing. So in my opinion, I feel like art is one of the fundamental and organic ways to connect community. I think that there's a universal language with art. You could not know a lot about art or know a whole lot about art, and you can still come together and really enjoy this experience. So I think art as a foundation is a great way to connect communities. And I think that with the Art in the Alley Festival, it's been amazing because it has been able to connect community, and not just from a economic or cultural way to grow the economy, but also from just a way to give the community a platform, a natural platform to be able to tell a shared story, to be able to be inspired by each other, to be able to create new friendships, just meet new people, and just be able to have that space. And really, we're all living in this town together. We're all wanting it to grow. We're all wanting it to be stimulated with culture and with everything that comes along with something that an art festival can bring. And giving downtown Ashtabula and Main Avenue that ability, and that even if it's just for the one day that we have that festival, it gives the community a space to be able to connect and to be able to work together. With the merchants on the street, that are very big sponsors of the festival, as well as other businesses. We do ask for sponsorships from businesses in the community, and they are so willing to help and be a part, and they're excited to be a part of that too. So it's really just connecting all the dots.
I'm Megan Humphrey, Executive Director of the Ashtabula Art Center, and I'm here to talk about the Art Center. So we were established in 1953 through a gift from Catherine Hill of her family home to establish a center for the arts. And it stayed in her home for 20 years, which was at the intersection of Lake Avenue and Route 20, where the YMCA is now. And at that point, they were holding art classes all over the house. They had art exhibits. There were dance classes in the basement. And it was clear that the organization had outgrown this home and it needed a new place. So in 1973, we opened at our current location, which is on 13th Street in Ashtabula, with a brand new facility. And since that time, the facility has grown from an office suite and galleries and dance space and a couple of studios to include 2 theaters, 1 indoors and 1 out, 2 new dance studios, music instruction spaces, rehearsal spaces, a concession stand. So we have really grown into the space that we have and expanded exponentially since 1973. We are fortunate in that all of the arts are married together at the Ashtabula Art Center. So if you're interested in music or dance or art or theater, we have programs in all of those areas. So we provide classes for children straight through retirement age in all of the disciplines. We provide private music instruction and performance opportunities for people in the community. So our dancers do 2 performances a year in our theater, one of a full production of Nutcracker and a spring production, which is all original choreography. We do a full summer season of musicals outdoors. We do a full winter season of musicals and straight plays and dramas indoors. We do music performances throughout the year, both inside and out. So there are a lot of opportunities for community members to be involved in performance activities, and it's part of our education process. So if a child comes and they're interested in theater at age 7, all the way through high school, they're getting more and more challenging roles and more experience that allows them to then go on to pursue that as an adult through college, or even just to be part of community theater as they get older. So again, we combine that teaching and then just community involvement in everything that we do. which makes the Art Center a place for families. So there are a lot of families where everyone in the family, from their 7-year-old right through the grandparents, are involved in things. And we're really proud of that we give opportunities for people to experience the arts together as a family, whether it's performing or making art or just attending something. When we provide educational opportunities for students, we often have students that take it very seriously and they move on to professional careers. Alison Dubsky retired from Alberta Ballet in Canada as one of their premier dancers. Zach Adkins, who moved to New York to be part of Broadway, is currently cast in Diana, which is a show that is to open on Broadway once Broadway can reopen. And he was in Anastasia as the lead male role. We also have some professional musicians that Connor O'Brien, who lives in Berea, has performed all over the world, has toured all over the United States. He leads choirs in Cleveland, has had a recording career, and has made his entire career out of his music. And he started out doing summer theater musicals at the Art Center. Nora Pertz is a classical pianist. She currently lives in Berlin, and her focus is art songs. So she works directly with one vocalist, and she's the pianist, and she competes. She's also worked with the Berlin Opera. So those examples are people who have really taken the arts and made their lives out of it. But the other thing that we do, and arts organizations all over the country do, is that we provide arts experiences that prepare people for lots of things. I'm especially excited about what we do in outreach in the community. Every time you involve a group of people in making art or being involved in art, there's a community buy-in. So one of the things we've done recently is community-based murals, where it's not just an artist who paints the mural, it's 100 people or 600 people who actually get to put a paintbrush to that mural. And we learned that technique from an artist from Minneapolis named Greta McLean, and she taught us the community involvement part. But the most recent one we did, every child in one of our grade schools here was able to paint on the mural for their school, and we installed a 600-foot mural in their school. We have a fun new project where we have placed fairy doors in public places throughout the city and county, and people can visit those and go to our website and find a map. But it's a way to interact with the arts and do a little bit of tourism. And we do a lot of outreach in the public schools in the after-school hours, and it's a way to reach especially kids who don't have the maybe transportation to the Art Center or can't afford to pay for a class. We provide programming in their after-school hours in conjunction with other after-school programs. So outreach is really important to us, and it helps us expand those who are involved in the arts. I think that having access to the arts in a community is essential to the quality of life in a community. It's essential to the educational process, and I'm really proud of what we do.
Hi, I'm Chris Martello, and I love the Ashtabula Harbor. It just hit me one day. My daughter had moved into a photography studio at the harbor, and I started coming there more often. And I was reading a book about the history. One day in the summer of 2018, I went kayaking with my grandson, and it just hit me. Everything just seemed to come to life. And I had this compelling force. I decided to start studying about the history more. And I started making note cards and studying them. And then I just came up with a name, and I thought, Erie, we're on Lake Erie, Erie Harbor. So I decided to make it a ghost walk. and incorporate some stories with the history. And so I came up with this logo in the name of the company. And then I decided to add some flair. So I came up with a costume, one for summer and one for fall, because I thought I need to layer up it gets pretty cold out there on the side of the river. So I got my family involved, and this is my grandson, and he would bring lanterns and pass them out to people. And he would check off their names, and he was a big help. And it taught him about how to start a business. And he would watch me tell the story. And wouldn't you know, pretty soon, people came. I listed it on Eventbrite, and they actually booked, and they came. It was so thrilling. As I told the stories more often, I got more comfortable telling the stories, and I decided I could get more expression and really feel the stories. And I could see in people's eyes how much they enjoyed the stories, and some of the things that I told them seemed unbelievable. One of the interesting shops that we went into, unfortunately it's not there anymore, but the lady that worked in the shop the night we visited there said she had heightened paranormal activity there, and she was able to perceive it. And she went on to tell the people about the spirits that she had seen in that shop. And I started keeping my ears open, and I started realizing I was hearing that more and more. Now, I'm a storyteller. I'm not a psychic or a witch, but it just keeps my ears open and my eyes. At this point in the tour, I tell a story about the Finns and the Irish and the conflict that they had. Now, the Finns came from so far away. They were under Russian influence, so this was so important that they get here. And after a while, the Finns and the Irish started having gang wars right here at the harbor. But people are really surprised when I tell the story. In this next photo, I tell about a real live bank robbery that happened right here in the early 1900s. And it's a lot of fun to tell that story. Well, the weather got cooler. I wondered if people would still come, and they did. And in this site, this is where there was a murder, actually as recently as 1946. And there's a lot of intrigue with that story. This year, as you can see, things look a little different. People are wearing masks, they're standing further apart, but underneath that mask, I know they're still smiling, and they still come. It hasn't slowed down at all. I'm so pleased to be able to continue to tell the story. After a steep climb up Halbert Hill, we go to the Michael Cahill Bed and Breakfast, and people are often surprised to hear some of the tales there. Here we are at the Point Park, which was a very pivotal point for the harbor. It used to be a lot larger until the railroads cut back some of the land. But you can see all the activity at the harbor. In the background, you see the mansion of Andrew DeLynn. He was the agent for the Lysy Beer Company. And as you can see from his beautiful house, he was one of the wealthier residents of the area. I enjoy seeing people just having fun with each other. They're learning something, they're being part of the community, but you can see them just having a good time together. One of my favorite views from the Point Park is the lift bridge. It really is a beautiful surprise when you look out over the park. This is the future. These little people are the future. When I was young, I barely remembered my grandma telling the story. And these girls will probably be more concerned about who's having a sleepover that night. But I hope they remember some of what they learned on this story and feel part of this community.
My name is Gallo. And I would be most honored to talk about Ashtabula Grows, an online gardening community to build community resilience and food security. Ashtabula Local Food is a group that's been around for the last several years, and our job or our mission is to promote local food and really bridge together farmers and community members. So in the past, we're quite present with the community and local farmers markets, with My Neighborhood program, which are some community gardens. This year we had our first CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, and we had boxes that we had folks pick up weekly with food that we had grown, that My Neighborhood project had grown. So that's the Ashtabula Food Group, and when COVID happened, some of us in the group were thinking about, well, how do we face this problem with possible food shortages? We don't know how long this is going to last. Here we are 7 months later and things are getting worse. We have production that is halted. So we started thinking about what we could do for the community in terms of food security. As a healthcare provider, growing your own food naturally, it's always been the foundation of health. So that was my angle on it, but we also wanted to do something for the community. So we decided to do an online series about home gardening to improve community resilience and food security. And what we decided to do is have weekly classes on Zoom. We were able to host as many as 300, but usually we had about 20 to 30 people coming to class. And we had topics such as planting seeds indoors. We were still in March. We started at the end of March, so we did the indoor seed planting. We took folks outdoors to plant the seeds. We talked about composting and worm bins and collecting water, rain collection systems. We also did classes on mental health. One of our collaborators is a person from the Community Counseling Center, because as we know, gardening is not just great for our physical health, but it's also beneficial for our mental health. We had the access to the Zoom, and then Sarah Brower learned about a pollinator grant from the Pollinator Project, and so we were able to actually create kits that we could give to folks. The kits included seeds, some seed starts, organic fertilizer, some soil, and that's what the kit included. We had 25 kits, and because of COVID, we just set them out on the front porch and let people come and pick their kit up. And in addition to the classes, every week we have a Facebook online community that's a private Facebook community. So throughout the week, participants could send pictures of how their garden is growing. They could ask questions. Classes will resume in spring is the goal. We're hoping to get more money to create more kits for folks who are interested. And even though we did 4 months of classes every Tuesday, there are still so many topics that were of interest to folks who are participating that we're hoping to continue. So what we have here in Ashtabula is an opportunity to actually create and grow enough food for all of the residents. This would be an amazing gift to the community. It would improve health, and we have the capacity. We have the more land, more fresh water, air, and we have the knowledge, the know-how, and the equipment to actually create enough food for all of the community members. And while some might think that sounds like a dream, it's actually a dream that is realistic. Like, we have that capacity. And what we saw with the class are how many people are excited about growing their own food. And we saw this actually, back after World War II, when there was a big promotion of victory gardens. And the victory gardens were basically communities were coming together and saying, we need to be growing our own food. Victory gardens were producing as much as industrialized farming at that time. So we have that capacity. We could do that here. And I think it's not a far-fetched dream.
Hi, I'm Rick Koblitz, and today I want to talk to you about Ashtabula County's Lights on the Lake. The concept of Lights on the Lake was there needs to be something to do in the winter in Ashtabula County because we get some pretty nasty winters. And the concept actually started about 25 years ago. We started talking about it with members of the Chamber of Commerce and a number of other people, some of which are still on our board. But the actual fundraising and development started about 17 years ago. We had to raise a lot of money for not just the displays, but all the wiring underneath to power the displays. When we put it all together, it was all incandescent bulbs back then 15 years ago. And we've since converted everything to LED. So we actually don't need as much power. It's a lot easier to run the displays now with extension cords than some of what we used to do. It's let us spread them out over the park more than what it has been. But the concept was just to bring something to the county. And with that same idea with COVID this year, we felt after our 15th year, during our 15th year, that it was important to support the county that has supported us. So even though we know we probably will not be breaking even this year, we still want to have the event. And the event is a touch-free event. We're not handing out any of the goodies, the candy, the bags, the brochures that we used to do. We've cut our advertising down to the bone so that we can cut expenses. But the displays will all be there. We have added some more to our synchronized music displays this year, thanks to some nice donations that we got in. And we did solicit and get some donations from the community to be able to put this event on without losing a lot of money, because we have a lot of fixed expenses. The displays are a lot of just normal holiday Christmas type displays, but a lot of them are custom displays for Ashtabula County, such as the lift bridge, covered bridge. One that's really unique, and I'm sure no one has anywhere in the country, is our flying saucer gas station, which was donated by the family and friends of somebody that used to live here in Ashtabula County and has passed away. But he had a gas station that was the shape of a flying saucer, and every season he would change what was in the top of the flying saucer. He'd put a pumpkin in for Halloween, a Santa for Christmas, and so we have Santa Claus waving in a flying saucer gas station. We have a lighthouse. We have numerous types of boats because Ashtabula is a big port, and so we have an ore carrier, we have sailboats, tugboats, various things like that. We just added last year, and we're expanding this year, a section that is synchronized to music. So it plays music and trees and pillars and things on the ground and all sorts of things move and dance to the music. We have our own little radio that you pick up in your car, so because you don't open your windows, and that way you can see the lights going to the music that's there. And we have, some really scenic areas in the park, like the pond area. We're at Lakeshore Park, which is right on the southern coast of Lake Erie. We're in between Cleveland and Erie, Pennsylvania. We always start the Friday after Thanksgiving, and we run until the last weekend in December. And we're only open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, unless it's a holiday. For instance, Christmas Eve, I believe this year, is on a Thursday. And so we're open Thursday, and then the rest of that week we're even open Christmas Day. On the holidays, we're only open from 6 to 8 at night. The rest of the time we're open from 6 to 9. As I said in the beginning, there isn't a whole lot to do in the winter, and this is become a family tradition. That's one reason why it works for the COVID time, because the people in the car are usually all related, and you can put as many in the car as you're allowed to do. We also have vans and buses and stuff that come through. But it's a family activity, so you can, they could go shopping, they could go to dinner, whatever, and cap it off with a drive through the park.
Hi, I'm Linda Virgil. I'm a founder of the Finnish American Heritage Association of Ashtabula in the county. Well, we have built a nice log cabin in the harbor area, and the reason we built the log cabin is because the Finns were under the rule of Sweden at the time, back in the 1600s, like 1638. And they were here before William Penn. They welcomed William Penn. So that's a long time ago. They brought the thing of the building of the log cabin at that time, and it was left out of the history books. It was built and started in 2004. In 2006, we opened. And my husband made it, and it's similar to the logs that they have in Finland. Many of the buildings in Finland are log cabin built, but they're underneath, except for the brick buildings. But well, it's a cultural center combination and museum, and we do have events there. We try to meet every month, starting with May, the Memorial Day weekend, until about Labor Day. Well, I didn't mention that we built our log cabin on landmark property over there, and there was a big Finnish hall there at the time, and a lot of people met there. It was started out as a temperance building, yes, and then it became a recreational thing. They had boxing and wrestling. They had a theater there, a library, and it was the largest wooden structure in the state of Ohio. At the time it was built in 1897, and it was torn down in 1961. Well, we welcome anyone. That you don't have to be the nationality of the Finnish. We'd like anyone is interested, and we'd like to welcome you and give you a tour and tell you about Savinto Hall. And they had great brass bands that started there, and they went on tours to Sweden, and they gave a tour there in Finland. And I was told by another lady that started a couple museums that, to have the interviews of the senior people or senior Finns would be a good idea, because it would be more important than any artifact to have these interviews. Well, I recorded them on cassettes back in those days, and we ended up with about 40. And my sister was a good writer, and she worked for KSU, Kent State, in our area here. The campus is in Ashtabula. And she did such a good job that she went through Kent Press, and it's now with the library, it's registered with the Library of Congress. The title is My Father Spoke Finglish at Work, the Finnish Americans of Northeast Ohio. It's a very interesting book.
Hello, my name is Stephen Kellett, and my story today is talking about changes in ministry thanks to the coronavirus. Now, before the coronavirus hit, for me, that was a little interesting. Ministry started out, I would preach in the woods at, say, the Music Along the River Festival out in Harpersfield. I would help as backup minister at West Avenue Church of Christ. And starting about 2016, I ended up on a more regular basis preaching second and fourth Sunday each month at Saybrook Landing, which is a nursing home over in Saybrook Township. Regularly, when we were there, people had home ministers, but they didn't get to see them. So we were their lifeline to the outside world. Standard sermons, standard singing. It was a regular service. The only difference was you didn't have a pew, and instead of songbooks, you had handouts with the songs printed. And regular communion. It's just that, now granted, you saw this normally these days, but even then, hand sanitizer, rubber gloves, one at a time. Here you go, here you go, here you go. Each resident individually got communion. That's normal today. Things started to change December 2019 when I had surgery and I had to recover from it. So that's also when the coronavirus crisis got started. And then we got to March of 2020 and got the call in which the nursing home said, "We're sorry. Based upon the instructions we got from the state of Ohio, you can't come out." And it was a lockdown order from the state in which no visitors from outside the staff could come in. At that time, we were told, "Hey, we'll let you know. We don't know how long this will run. Eventually, you'll be back. Someday." So at that point, almost a day later, I got the word from the church that West Avenue Church of Christ would halt meeting as it didn't seem prudent at the time. And then from mid-March through May, we didn't meet. And then about Easter, we didn't have anything until then, and I went ahead and did an online service for Easter, which that was a new and novel experience. Then we got to May, the governor loosened some things up, and we went ahead with drive-in services, which was part of our return to being back together as a congregation again. Drive-in services were a bit rough initially. The minister is a disc golf fan. So what he did was he hadn't been out disc golfing because we were just coming out of a rough cold period. So he got some of his discs out and he dotted the parking lot. And initially, we all wore green safety vests. People would drive into the parking lot, park here, park here, park here. And under the carport for the building, we had the minister at a podium, condenser microphone. My father ran sound, and I was effectively the stage manager. Managed distributing communion, make sure things worked. Anyone had a problem with their vehicle, try to figure out what happened, get it to work. And first couple were rough. By the end of May, it went well. One of the funny parts was in May, not every retail outlet was functioning correctly. So the first Sunday we were doing that, the podium microphone was a condenser mic and it didn't have its windscreen. And the winds on each Sunday in May kept picking up. So as the wind blew, we went like, okay, the microphone is really getting beat up. So we took a mask, and even though it was a disposable one, we tied it down to the microphone. It worked. And we had to improvise, adapt, and overcome. We made it work. And we had preaching, we had some not denominational, but congregational singing. Everyone sang in their cars with their windows down. Right now, we're back in the building. Church is rough wearing a mask, but we make it work. And if we have to suspend meeting again, I do hope that if we go back to online services, that I find an easier way to do it. And the biggest hope of all is that this becomes old hat for us, that we can adapt to this, because this is the new normal. And the history of Churches of Christ were forged a lot in the Civil War. We look at David Lipscomb down in Tennessee. A lot of the ecclesiology is focused right around the Civil War and its aftermath. A lot of big changes there. A lot of big changes around 1918 with the influenza epidemic. We have adapted. We have survived. And we can do it again.
So my name is Rebecca Moisio. I am the marketing coordinator at the Ashtabula County District Library. And I'm here to talk about the library's involvement in the community of Ashtabula. In 1903, Andrew Carnegie provided some funds for us to build a library, and that went along with Marie Conklin. She left some money in her will to go to this library. So we got the first library building that we're in right now. It was the Conklin Carnegie Library, and that's in 1902. In 1953, that became the County District Library, so it became the official library of the whole county of Ashtabula. In 1991, there was this grand renovation that had happened, and a fire broke out in the second floor and wiped out the entire second floor of this beautiful Carnegie building. But what had happened is there was a news outlet that got a hold of this store, and it became this national story in the 90s. And we got donations of, I think, 30,000 books from all over the country to kind of rebuild our collection. We were able to keep the facade of the building, most of the original building, from that. And then most recently in 2015, 2016, we did this massive remodel. So you can still see the original Carnegie building, it's there. It used to be called the Carnegie Conklin Library, now it's just the public library, the Ashtabula Public Library. And this renovation has tripled its size, and it's just this huge, grand building. Today, we serve about 57% of the county's population, which is a pretty big number. And pre-COVID, before we all had the big shutdown and all of that, we had about 12,000 people coming through every month through the Ashtabula Public Library. So we have obtained just recently, within the past year or so, it's called the Zwichel scanner. So this is a document scanner. I know, promise is exciting. So it's this document scanner that we obtained by the library. It's this German piece of technology. It's huge. And we got it through partnership. So there's a lot of different groups that study history in Ashtabula. So it's not just the Ashtabula Library, Public Library, but there's the Historical Society, and there's this Genealogical Society, and there's the Hubbard House, all kinds of museums in the area. So everyone is doing history for Ashtabula. So we kind of got a bunch of these people together to get this scanner, this technology. And the partnerships for this one specifically, it was the Ashtabula Foundation and the Ashtabula County Genealogical Society. And we had a private donor that joined in to help purchase this machine. And when it came, it was like Christmas for all of us at the library. It came this massive wooden crate. It looked like something out of, it was like the Ark of the Covenant from Indiana Jones. We assembled it. All of the instructions are in German because it came all the way from Germany. We didn't know how to pronounce it. Zwichel is how you pronounce it. Zwichel scanner. And we started putting it together. Now this scanner scans documents within seconds. So it's not your flatbed off the top of your desktop printer kind of scanner. Within seconds, it will have this perfect scan of the document that is well lit. You can read everything clearly. It gives you this really nice resolution so you get this document. It also has, it's set up to scan delicate documents so that you're not damaging anything. Because it goes so quickly, you can have these documents out for a short amount of time so that you don't damage them. It helps us to preserve them. It's one of the tools used for preservation. So we got this scanner, and we getting ready to use it, do all these projects, and then of course COVID happened, and that has kind of stepped in the way. But some of the projects we have planned, We're working with the Ashtabula County Historical Society. They've got all of these copies of historical newspapers from like the 1800s. They're the Ashtabula Sentinel is what we have. So we have all of these stacks of newspapers that we're going to go through and scan all the pages and have nice digital copies of things to hold on to them. We've got all kinds of historical and genealogical documents at the library. We've got photos. We're going to have this great photo library. Diaries, we have one diary from this wonderful young woman. I don't know who she is, but she even writes in her diary, I hope no one reads this. We have it, bless her heart. So we've got that, people's histories, all of these beautiful, rich documents that are the history of Ashtabula that we're going to be able to hold on to and share. So the idea of this project that we have with the scanner is that we are allowing the community to come in and share in this history. So it's not just the library holding on to these things, we are holding them to give out to other people. When we start getting this going, we're going to have things on the Ohio Memory Project, which is at ohiomemory.org. So if you go to that and you look up the Ashtabula Public Library, you'll be able to find all the documents that we're working on. There's not many there yet, we're catching up, but that's where they're going to go, is onto that. So the scanner, it seems like such a mundane thing, and I get that, and that's not super exciting for a lot of people. But it matters because this is a community that has a very strong foundation, right? We have a very rich and very diverse history that you wouldn't expect here. We're in this really unique position as the library where we are able to hold on to the past and hold on to what we have and connect that to the future and to where we're going. When you know your foundation, when you can recognize your deep roots, your strong roots, that gives you a place, a firm foundation, a firm place to stand from which to go ahead into the future. That's for the next generation coming up. One of the pages our archive librarian scanned, and she sent it to me because it was really cool. It had a leaf. Someone had pressed a leaf in this page, and it was beautiful, and we thought it was this enchanting thing. But I got to reading this paper, and it really clicked with me. I go, this is why this is important. So let me read this here for you for a second. This is the Ashtabula Sentinel in 1842. It says, the following are the resolutions adopted at the anniversary of the Ohio State Anti-Slavery Society. And I go, wow, this is 42. This is 20 years before the 13th Amendment. This was about a year after this Hubbard House was built. So this kind of mindset of anti-slavery, diversity, protecting people, protecting the dignity of people was so important in this era. And I think it's important for us to hold on to that as we look forward, especially in today's, kind of political climate.
Hello, my name is Fred Robsell. I'm the chairman of the board of the Hubbard House Underground Railroad Museum, and I'm here to tell you our story. Our story begins with the arrival of Colonel William Hubbard and his wife Catherine in Ashtabula in around 1834, 1836. The Hubbard House was built no later than 1841. I use the word built advisedly because the bricks out of which the house was built were actually made by a runaway slave named Uncle Jake. He fashioned the bricks out of clay that he dug from the hill behind the house and fired down on the beach, what today is Walnut Beach. Other than that, we don't know very much about Uncle Jake. Colonel William himself considered himself a farmer. This house was the farmhouse of a 50-acre farm. However, Colonel William was a gentleman farmer. He had come to Ashtabula County with his two brothers in order to manage 57,000 acres of land scattered throughout northeastern Ohio. This land had been bought by his uncle, Nehemiah Hubbard, when the Ohio Western Reserve was founded in 1796. The Ohio Western Reserve was a tract of land that stretched from Lake Erie south to Mahoning County in Ohio, and from the Ohio-Pennsylvania border all the way over to Sandusky. The three brothers, Matthew, arrived in Ashtabula in 1805. Second brother, Henry, arrived in 1825. And the third brother, Colonel William, arrived, as I said, somewhere between 1834 and 1836. At great risk to himself and in violation of the Fugitive Slave Acts of 1793 and 1850, the house became a very significant refuge for persons who had been enslaved in the South. These persons were escaping from slavery along what we know today as the Underground Railroad. Fugitive slaves were sheltered in the house, in the cellar, and in the barn, which no longer exists but was located across the street, and in a cupboard, which tradition has was located in the downstairs hallway. This cupboard gave the house its code name, Mother Hubbard's Cupboard. And that's how runaway slaves were able to identify it when they were traveling from station to station along the Underground Railroad. They would remain here until conditions were right for them to move on to Canada. And when that occurred, Henry Hubbard, William's brother, became involved. Henry operated a shipping concern along the river here in Ashtabula Harbor. And ships like the Wind of the Waves would pull into the little yellow warehouse. Word would be sent up here to Hubbard House. And then after dark, the fugitives would be guided down what is today Walnut Boulevard to the river, where they would board the ship that was available and be transported across the lake to Canada. We don't know exactly how many fugitive slaves passed through the house. We estimate probably around 300 to 400. We do know from a diary entry that as many as 39 were sheltered here on the property at one time. One of these fugitive slaves that we do know by name that is associated with the house was a man named Charlie Garlick. Charlie had escaped from plantation in what is today West Virginia, but at that time was Virginia. He came in search for his brother who had escaped earlier, and he was taken or sheltered by a farmer a little bit to the east of what is today Andover. Charlie heard a rumor that his brother was attending a camp meeting in Butler County, Pennsylvania, and he and Anson Garlick went to the camp meeting, and the people attending the camp meeting grew suspicious of this black man and white man asking questions about an escaped slave. In order to quell the suspicions, Charlie produced a pass signed by Colonel William. From this, we know that Colonel William's reputation as an abolitionist and as a man who was operating on the Underground Railroad, in spite of the violations of the law, was well known as far south as Pittsburgh. Charlie would serve in the Civil War and afterwards would take up residence in our county seat, Jefferson, Ohio. The house is significant because it is one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad to be preserved in, as nearly as possible, its original condition. And that preservation is due to Tim Hubbard, a direct descendant of Colonel William. He negotiated with the city of Ashtabula and in 1970 saved the house from the wrecking ball. At that time, the house was being used as the Ashtabula recreation offices, but the city could no longer maintain it. And quite a bit of structural damage had been visited upon the house over the years. Family, friends, volunteers worked together over a 25-year period so that the house today stands pretty much as it might have been in the 1840s. It was opened to the public as a museum in 1995. During the restoration, Youngstown State University conducted 2 archaeological digs. We do have items from those digs on display here in the museum. We do also have items dating from the Civil War, which were contributed to the museum by the estate of a local merchant named Charlie Moses. And on exhibit right now, we have a gallery of photographs of African American soldiers who fought during the Civil War and their respective stories. We do get visitors from not just Ashtabula proper, but from all over the United States, and we even periodically get visitors from across the world. We're happy to share our story with them. Many of our visitors are interested in the restoration itself, the antiques that we have on display. We are particularly welcoming to those, however, who come here because they are interested in our story and the history.
My name is Andy Pachotko, and I have been a docent with the Hubbard House Underground Railroad Museum for 8 years now. For the past 2 years, I have been the organizer of the Hubbard House's annual Underground Railroad pilgrimage. The pilgrimage began as an effort by Tim Hubbard, who was the financier and founder of the Hubbard House Underground Railroad Museum. And as the heir to the Hubbard legacy, he wanted to ensure that the Hubbards were recognized for their efforts in aiding enslaved persons to gain their freedom in Canada. So he began this pilgrimage in order to educate the public as to what the Underground Railroad was, what its role was in the larger abolitionist movement and in the larger anti-slavery movement. When we think of the Underground Railroad, we think of it as the overarching narrative of the North in the anti-slavery movement, when in reality it played a very small part of the larger anti-slavery movement. The anti-slavery effort can be seen in different parts that were kind of counterintuitive to each other. So there was, to begin with, the colonization movement, which the persons who supported colonization advocated for African Americans, many of whom who had been born in the U.S., to then migrate to Africa, to a place they had never been and only had an ancestry with. They were followed by the gradual emancipationists, who argued that enslaved persons should be let go only on a limited basis, and that usually the persons who enslaved them should be compensated for their labor. And then the most radical of these were the immediate emancipationists, led by William Lloyd Garrison out of Boston. And they argued that enslaved persons should be freed immediately without any recourse to their former masters and incorporated into society at large. And for this time, this is really a radical idea where many people, not just Southerners, including Northerners, did not support the integration of African Americans into society. So as I said, the Underground Railroad really played a small part in that, whereas we consider it to be this larger organized network throughout the U.S. It really was made up more of localities, like here in Ashtabula with the Hubbard House. That was just a small proportion of that. Now, William Hubbard may have had connections here in the county, but beyond that, you really wouldn't unless you had money. And we do see that in some of the cases on the East Coast, where financiers with money were able to have organized underground railroad networks between Philadelphia, New York, and up into Massachusetts. In the North, we have this conception, sort of we done well kind of thing. We like to think of ourselves on the side of right when it came to the slavery issue. And when I've given tours with the Hubbard House, or through the pilgrimage. I always make the example that just across the state line in Pennsylvania, in Erie County, there were enslaved persons. There were enslaved persons in Erie County up to, I believe, the 1840s. And this comes from the Emancipation Law that Pennsylvania passed in 1780, where it said that if you were in slavery when that bill passed, that you were enslaved essentially for the rest of your life. Now, if you were born to a person who was enslaved, you were essentially in slavery until you reached the age of 28. Now, they called it indentured servitude, but really it was slavery. And we see some of the earliest significant people in Erie's history were involved in this program. So Robert Kelso was one. People recognize Kelso Drive down by Waldemar Park, sparing his name, and also PSV Hammett. PSV Hammett gained at least some of his fortune through slave labor. So each year we have a different theme when it comes to the pilgrimage. It happens that this previous year we featured women abolitionists in Ashtabula County, and this coincided with the anniversary of the passage of women's suffrage as well, so it was especially pertinent to us. In Ashtabula County, the most important female abolitionist was Betsy Mix Coles, and she was early on involved in creating the Ashtabula County Female Anti-Slavery Society, which at its time numbered close to 500 members. And this made it one of the largest anti-slavery societies in Ohio. And with her backing, women organized different efforts to aid both escaped slaves and also free blacks in the North. So what women were doing, even though they didn't have the right to vote, they did have the option to petition Congress, which was big at the time. Women and other abolitionists would send these petitions to the House of Representatives and the Senate to petitioning them to end slavery either in the District of Columbia or in the territories they controlled. And they received so many petitions that the Southerners just got fed up with it and said, we're not going to even consider these anymore. They issued what was called the gag rule. And even though this gag rule was in place, there were still people like Betsy Mix Coles who were encouraging the petitions and sending them off. One of the people who was in the fight with Betsy Mix Coles was Joshua Giddings, who was the state representative to Ohio in the House at the time. And Giddings would get up there and rail against the gag rule. And he ended up getting censured by the House for his actions, resigned his position, comes back to Ashtabula County, and promptly gets voted back in. So that was a major affront to the Southerners to see Giddings back in Congress. One of the major issues in folklore in the abolitionist movement has to do with John Brown, the Harper's Ferry raid, and his connections to Ashtabula County. Many people think that John Brown actually lived here within the county. That is not true. It was his son, John Brown Jr., who lived here in the county. John Jr. first came to Ashtabula County, as far as we can tell, to attend Grand River Institute. Now, from what we can tell, he did support his father's abolitionist views, including the use of violence to free slaves. And we do have documentation that the summer before the Harper's Ferry raid took place, that many of the raiders were stationed throughout Ashtabula County doing work before they reached the Kennedy farm. So that's something that we do like to highlight, is that Brown was active in the area even if he wasn't living here, and the John Brown house still sits on Route 307 in Dorset, Ohio. and we've made it stop many times over the years. Well, we're still seeing the effects of systemic racism. A lot of the issues that affected African Americans in the 19th century and even before are still issues that they're facing today. We have, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement today, which is extremely polarizing for people. And in reality, when you think about it, the abolitionist movement could be touted as the first Black Lives Matter movement. We really need to understand its effects on our history because it's not something that is readily talked about in schools, in the curriculum. It's something that's kind of glossed over because really there's so much to cover in American history as it is. You can have a specialty course just on it alone. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there on the nature of slavery and especially the complexity of the system itself, but also the movements to eradicate it.
Hi, my name is Len Brown, and I am the director and producer of the documentary film Engineering Tragedy, The Ashtabula Train Disaster. On December 29th, 1876, Ashtabula became ground zero for the worst train disaster of the 19th century. It killed 97 people and injured 73, and it was really a turning point. And brought about a lot of changes in America for the way we built bridges and a lot of the bridge building and inspection standards that we have today kind of came from this disaster. In fact, the whole occupation of engineering consultation came as a direct result of this disaster. It was a time when, back when this happened, this was a time when engineering was still really in its infancy. It was now kind of becoming, it was going from an empirical art to an actual occupation where professionals were trained who used mathematics to figure force, stress, tension in bridges. And they were moving from wooden bridges to iron bridges. And the Ashtabula Bridge was one of those bridges. The Ashtabula Bridge, the all-iron Ashtabula Bridge, replaced an all-wooden Howe Truss Bridge with an all-iron Howe Truss Bridge. And the Howe Truss was actually probably it was the most popular bridge in America, a railroad bridge in America. Thousands were built around the world, from Austria, Russia, Germany, all through the United States. And it was a solid, good bridge. But the bridge just didn't transpose well from wooden to all iron. So that evening, as the Pacific Express number 5, which was actually the most luxurious train to ever ride the rails of North America, it rode started in Buffalo, New York, and ended its journey in Chicago, Illinois, and it was a luxury train. In fact, they called it the Crack because it was so luxurious. Anyone who rode this train just rode in the laps of luxury. So on December 29th, 1876, when the Pacific Express was crossing the bridge during this raging blizzard, a angle block failed at the second chord and the whole bridge came down like a house of cards. It was really difficult for rescuers and stuff to get there because it was kind of a remote location. And Ashtabula, of course, it was a raging blizzard, and Ashtabula, even though they had a fire department of probably 173 volunteer firefighters, they weren't really professional firefighters, and really a disaster of that size would have been difficult even for a modern fire department to handle. So there was difficulties with the rescue, and Ashtabula didn't have a hospital, so there was no place to take the victims of the disaster, so they were taken to people's private homes. And the citizens of Ashtabula just opened up their doors, to these people, trying to care for them until, trying to wait for a relief train to come from Cleveland with surgeons and medical supplies. But in any case, after the disaster, even before the smoke had cleared, the residents of Ashtabula were really upset because the fire department really never made any attempt to put out the fire. They arrived probably, well, I don't know how long it took them to get there, but the wreck was fully engulfed in flames by the time the fire department got there, and they never really attempted to put the fire out. Galen Knapp, who was the fire chief at the time, they felt that he showed up drunk. He came from the Goodfellows Club. It was kind of because the fire department was really, even though it was a fire department, it was more like a gentleman's club than a real true professional firefighting force. And so he showed up maybe a little tipsy, and there was some miscommunication, and so he thought that he was told not to put water on the fire, just to help rescue people and get them to safety, and so that's what he told his men to do. So the next morning, before the smoke had even cleared, the citizens were furious, and they were really upset, and they launched the first investigation, which was the coroner's jury investigation. And they were demanding answers. They wanted to know who was responsible for this. They were terrified something like this would happen again. They had all these injured and dead people to worry about. How are they going to contact all the next of kin to these people? There was no passenger manifest. Some of the people, they didn't know how they were going to get a hold of the next of kin to let them know their loved one was injured. It was between Christmas and New Year's, so it was kind of a crazy time for the city. There were also two other investigations launched. One, Rutherford B. Hayes, who, like I said, was president-elect at the time of the United States. He asked the Ohio Legislative Committee to investigate, and then the American Society of Civil Engineers also launched an investigation, and all three kind of worked in concert with each other. So, kind of to make a long story short, all three investigations found that Amasa Stone, the president of the railroad, was responsible for the disaster because of the basically engineering and design flaws with the bridge, and of course, when the bridge was being built, or when it was being planned anyways, Stone hired a bridge man, a professional engineer by the name of Joseph Tomlinson, to help with the drawings of the bridge, but Stone really didn't listen to him. Stone felt that he'd been building bridges for 25 years and had built thousands of house truss bridges, and he felt that he hired this guy to not get into his business but just do drawings. And Joseph Tomlinson tried to tell him that the bridge was going to be too heavy, that there were issues that were going to be with the bridge, and he really just kind of refused to listen. But as the construction process went on, I should say though that Joseph Tomlinson actually quit as well. He 2 months before the bridge was supposed to start construction, he actually walked away from the project. I think it was because he really didn't want his name on that bridge and be held responsible if anything happened. But in any case, as they began to build the bridge, they ran into all kinds of problems. All the things that Tomlinson had said would happen was basically happening, and it just it took a number of years to finish the project. Normally, those bridges went up in 30 days. They could build these bridges really quick, sometimes in just a matter of a week or two. But this one took years to complete. During the investigations, Charles Collins testified before the Ohio Legislative Committee that he felt that the bridge was experimental. Collins had really nothing to do with the building of the bridge, even though he was the head engineer. But when the bridge was finished, he was basically put in charge of maintaining it. And he really knew nothing about how to maintain an all-iron version of the house truss bridge. He knew all about the wooden house truss bridge, but didn't know the intricacies that were involved with an all-iron house truss bridge. So in any case, he said that he testified that he felt that the bridge was experimental. That evening, after he testified, Collins was murdered. So unfortunately, that was another victim of the disaster. The last victim of the disaster was Amasa Stone himself, the president of the Lakeshore Michigan Southern Railroad. After the investigations were over and he was held responsible, he kind of became an outcast in society. and really had a very tough time. Even though his wealth and power maybe kept him from being prosecuted, he couldn't escape public scorn. So he kind of became an outcast, no longer invited to kind of parties or anything, and people would cross the other side of the street when they would see him. And Stone attempted to kind of rebuild his reputation by participating in philanthropy. But through the years, he just never could shake, the stigma of that accident. So he was having some health issues at the time as well. He suffered from ulcers, and he I think a year earlier he was injured in a carriage accident and near Public Square, and had some financial failures, and it just all weighed on him, and he ended up committing suicide. And so my wife and I are producing a documentary film entitled Engineering Tragedy, the Ashtabula Train Disaster. It's really a very important part of not just only Ashtabula history, but American history, because it really changed the way we built America's infrastructure during the Industrial Revolution. It brought about a lot of changes in the way we built bridges and maintained bridges. And it brought about new laws for even the railroads themselves. So even though it's a local story, it's a national story. And it's a fantastic story with lots of drama.
I moved up here from Girard, Ohio, and took a teaching position at one of our junior high schools. When I moved up here, I knew absolutely nobody. And I have found this community extremely welcoming. And one of the families who took me under their wing almost immediately was the Hubbard family. The Hubbards lived down the street from the apartment that I took. I became active at the Ashtabula Art Center, and Mrs. Hubbard and I performed in many of the shows there. I taught all three of the Hubbard children when they were in grades 7 and 8. So we've enjoyed a very fine relationship over the years, and it's one of the reasons why I became involved here at Hubbard House.
Well, I've lived here all my married life. It's over 55 years. We raised our family, and we had 4 generations go to the Harbor High School.
Ashtabula is completely a hidden gem. I mean, we have the most gorgeous natural resources, inexpensive housing, and access to some really wonderful things. I raised my kids here, and they spent a lot of time at the Art Center and the YMCA and outdoors. So we're just a marvelous little hidden gem.
Personally, I have Finnish roots. My father's family is from Finland. There's a huge Finnish community here in Ashtabula, which is really cool, and it's one of my favorite things. There's a museum here somewhere about it, but that history of the Finnish people here is just everywhere, and it's so cool. You can find it in bakeries also. There's a really good bakery on Main Street.
So my favorite thing about Ashtabula is the peace and tranquility of the small town atmosphere and the lovely landscapes and beaches.
Something that I am very proud of with Ashtabula is that they have the options and opportunities for someone like me to be able to come back after being gone for a little bit, being able to contribute my knowledge and my experience, and giving resources to be able to stay creative, to be able to have a voice, to be able to have ideas, and they listen and implement them. So that's very cool. Otherwise, Ashtabula, of course, the beaches, the metro parks it's a beautiful place to be. I've been a lot of places and a lot of beautiful beaches all across the country, and tell you what, nothing really can beat an Ashtabula beach, I think. Yeah.
So I love that we have this history. I love that we have bicycle lanes and opportunities to bicycle. Also, I kayak. So we've got so many beautiful rivers here in Ashtabula. Not just Ashtabula City, because we do have great access to rivers here. The Ashtabula River being literally 3 blocks away from where I live, but also throughout the whole county. We have the Grand River, we have the Conneaut River. There's so many great parks here. So much fabulous birding, especially this time of year as birds are starting to migrate. It's amazing. And we have community members who are really engaged. I think that all of those things make it a wonderful place to live.
I love the people of Ashtabula. I have been fortunate to work here in Ashtabula for 10 years and learn their stories. And I'm really honored that they have included me as one of their own, even though I'm from Conneaut originally, and there's kind of a rivalry there. But I enjoy the people, so I'm glad to be able to serve them in whatever capacity I can.
Ashtabula is incredibly unique. The people, the diversity that it has, and I think the sense of pride that we have here. You can go anywhere in the state of Ohio. You can go outside the state of Ohio, and when you mention Ashtabula, there's always going to be a question, or someone's going to resonate it with some way. And I think I love the pride that people embody about it most.
I would say my favorite thing about Ashtabula are the people. My wife and I have just fallen in love with the residents here.
I was born and raised in Ashtabula, and went away for a little while and came back to the area after college and working outside the community for a short stint. But my favorite thing about Ashtabula is just that community of Ashtabula. We all have our differences. We all have things that we're very passionate about, and we may not all agree on a way of getting to the end point, but I think we all have that end point in common. And when this community needs to, we rally together, we put on our best face, and we really help each other out. And I think that's one of the greatest assets that we have here in this community.
My favorite thing about Ashtabula is the people at the harbor. I like their sense of community. I like to help them decorate for different seasons. Everybody works together. I love how the store owners refer people to one another, and it's a real sense of community.
Well, I like the scenery, for one. It's a very scenic area, but I like the people. This committee, for instance, although we've had some people come and go through the years, has been pretty consistent, and they, along with all the people that aren't in the committee, are just always ready to jump in and help. One of the local plants is providing us with 20 employees on a Saturday to do the wiring this year. We just have a lot. Whenever we call, the answer is pretty much always yes.
My favorite thing about Ashtabula is the sense of community that we have here and the pride that most of our residents have living here. And they're really determined to make this place the best it can be. And I would really, really miss our restaurants if I ever moved away.
We have done so many great things here. There is so much potential. We have a major point on the Great Lakes where we're at a shipping crossroads. We don't utilize it enough. And if we did that a little more, there are so many great things we could be doing.
Our Town Stories from Ashtabula is sponsored in part by Worthington Industries, a global diversified metals manufacturing company since 1955. Worthington Industries manufactures a host of pressure cylinders products for industrial gas and cryogenic applications, transportation and alternative fuel storage, and oil and gas equipment. They are a proud sponsor of WQLN PBS. Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County. Formed in 1990, the Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County brings business and civic leaders together to promote and assist business and job growth. The partnership plans to grow the next generation of companies to help create good jobs for county residents and build a skilled and talent-based workforce to fuel this expansion. The Growth Partnership for Ashtabula County, helping to revitalize the local community and strengthen the quality of life for Ashtabula residents. Grand River Rubber and Plastics. Located in Ashtabula for over 45 years, Grand River Rubber and Plastics is a 100% employee-owned manufacturer of lathe-cut gaskets, pail gaskets, and sweeper belts for commercial and industrial use. They are proud to support growth in Ashtabula through a contribution to this program and others like it. Information on becoming an employee owner is at grandriverrubber.com. Our Town Stories from Ashtabula is also sponsored in part by Fargo Machine Company, Ashtabula Downtown Development Association, and viewers like you. Thank you.